Goodness. All right. Well, I'm happy to be here this morning. As Mr. Dan said, I do get the chances to preach on fifth Sundays. I am filling in for Pastor Tom. I am not Pastor Tom. You guys know this. I know this. I'm going to do the best I can to present to you a message this morning that will hopefully encourage, uplift, and it's going to be something of a very different version of that this morning because I've come here to be a man basher this morning. That's right. So, yeah, I know. I heard the grunt. So be prepared, men, because this one is for y'all. Ladies, you guys can learn a few things as well, but I figure with this being the Sunday before the first of the year, if we're going to start the new year the right way, it's going to start from the head down. The head of the family, the head of the home, starts with the man, starts with the house. It starts with the house. Starts with the man, starts with the husband, starts with the man in the home. And the man in the home has to trust fully and first and foremost in Christ. And with those things said, I've got 5 lessons for us to learn this morning from the stupidest man in the Bible. Okay? Stupidest man in the Bible. Now, again, this is going to be a little different this morning. I understand that. We're low. It's all of us, just an intimate setting here to talk about God's Word. But if you wouldn't mind, turn with me, please, to the first Samuel chapter 25, and we're going to look at verses 2 through 38. 1 Samuel chapter 25, 2 through 38. Now, I see a couple smiles out there. Maybe, just maybe, you guys know who I'm going to start talking about this morning. And the guy's name is Nabal. The gentleman's name is Nabal. In fact, here's a fun factoid for you in case you guys ever managed to make it to Jeopardy. Nabal's name actually means fool. It actually means senseless. It actually means not very bright individual. And he's going to give us some examples of how not bright he is and how we as men can learn from these examples and also how we can better lead our family coming into the new year. So, who is the most brainless man in the Bible? Now, there are many examples of that. We could consider the most brainless person. A person could probably compile a long list consisting of Adam, who listened to his wife and bit the food. Cain, who killed his brother. Esau, Pharaoh, Saul, Ahab, Judas, Simon the sorcerer. I love the fact that people's mistakes aren't whitewashed in the scriptures. In fact, a lot of the mistakes we have an opportunity to learn from, use, and apply in our very lives in this day and age. Again, even the holiest of guys blew it. We think of Peter when he denied Christ 3 times. It was told to him he was going to do so. Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. No way, not me, no how. And he did it anyway. Even the most holy men mess up, make mistakes. And unfortunately, many of them found forgiveness. Sorry. Fortunately, many of them found forgiveness and got a second chance. And we find that is very true in every day that we have the opportunity to roll over, smack our phones when it goes beeping at us to get up in the mornings, or when we're hit the snooze button, or when we're rolling out of bed to put our feet on the cold floor, or whether we're rolling into bed to close our eyes at 3:30 in the morning after wrapping gifts, only to wake up an hour later because of a sick kid. It makes no difference. We have second chances. We're provided second chances day in, day out. This is men, this is women, this is children, this is all of us. But again, this morning is going to be a little different as I'm trying my best to sort of aim this at the men of the congregation this morning, and for those that are listening online as well. All right? There's one guy whose stupidity, and I say it like that, stupidity, puts himself in a class all by himself. Partly because he never realized how spiritually clueless he was when it came to following after Christ. Now, of course, back then they didn't know Christ. They knew the prophecies. They knew that it was coming, but they didn't know when. And so he didn't realize where he was or how clueless he was because of it. If we want to be good husbands, We want to be good fathers. We want to be good men. I know that there's some gentlemen in the room this morning that are less than the age of 18. If you guys want to grow up and you want to have good leaders, be good examples, and follow after the biblical example that's given to us, then may I recommend that we don't follow after this guy. Okay, we want to take a cue from the Old Testament, from this Old Testament geezer, whose name literally means fool. Here are 5 reasons that I put, and again, this is my list, but I put Nabal in the stupid category. Reason number 1, Nabal didn't honor God. Nabal didn't honor God. Nabal was an entrepreneur. If you read through this story, and this is 36 verses long, I'm not going to read the entirety of it all, but if you'll follow along with me, just kind of follow along through that chapter in that book right there, 1 Samuel chapter 24, 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 2 through 38. You'll see and you'll read about it and you'll get the same instance that I do. He's an entrepreneur. He built a prosperous business in shepherds and sheep and goats. But the Bible says that he was harsh and evil in his dealings. If you look at Samuel 25, verse 3, it says, "Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and of beauty and of countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb." He was evil. He was not doing things the proper way. He was conniving. He was double dealing. He was not a good businessman. Now, he made money and he was prosperous, if you consider that being a good businessman. But having a good reputation to follow along with it is just as, if not more, important than making money. I work for a company. We all have our jobs outside of church. We all work for and want to work for reputable companies. And if you're involved in sports, if you're a coach, if you're an assistant coach, if you're an athletic trainer on the sidelines, you want to be that person that has a reputable reputation, because you want those students that are presented to you to trust you. You want the parents to trust you with their kids, and you want to represent the school and you want to represent yourself as best as possible. And that's what Nabal was not doing. That's what Nabal was not doing. He was the kind of man that no one really wants to be around. He was pompous, corrupt, and selfish. When David came seeking food for his warriors, Nabal actually refused to help. He didn't care about God's kingdom because he was totally focused on building his own. He was totally focused on building his own kingdom, his own fortune, his own was his main focus. Men, I implore you, ladies, the same way. You see your husband start acting this way, smack him in the head. Well, don't really, because then I'll get in trouble for it. If you see your husband start slipping when it comes to honoring God, remind him. Remind him of this story right here. Remind him of this guy right here who was great in business dealings but terrible at being a good person. He had a terrible reputation. He didn't mind. He didn't want anything to do with furthering God's kingdom, but furthering his own. Lesson number 1 I'd like to tell you guys is smart men yield the throne of their lives as well as their money and careers to Christ first. We want to be successful. There's no doubt about it. I'm a dad, I'm a father, I'm a husband. I've got 4 tater tots running around here. And if they're not running, that means they're not feeling good. Today they're feeling pretty good. And you guys can definitely relate to that when my son's sitting up here opening and closing song books in the middle of song service, okay? He's feeling just fine. But my focus is to make sure that, yes, my kids or my family and my wife and my bills are paid and provided for, but also that I'm a great example for who they want to be. We spend time in my garage. We've got a couple of bicycles I got from my dad's house, and we've been stripping them down and repainting them and doing all these things. And my son, who is now 5, he has a toolbox. And I recently upgraded his toolbox from the little bitty plastic one that's like that big to a full-out metal toolbox. And he's like, "Daddy, that makes me just like you." And I'm like, "You don't want to be like me. You want to be better than me. because I want him to be better. I don't want him to make the same mistakes that I make. I don't want him to go through the same trials and tribulations that I've put them through and them not know it. Men, if you want to honor God, you honor him by giving your life, by giving your career, by giving your money to Christ first, bar none. It doesn't come any simpler than that. You want to be an honorable man? You want to have that reputation that people want to be around? You want to be that individual that says that people can look at and be like, yep, that guy's a Christian. That guy goes to church. And not because you're sitting there talking down to people and blaspheming people and judging individuals, but because your honor and your reputation upholds what Christ would want. That's how you be an honorable man. And in the year 2025, we need more men to do that. Now, ladies, I'm not trying to be anti-lady in here. I'm not trying to be anti-man. This is for you all too. You all need to honor God as well. If you're single, if you're singles in here, if they're single ready to mingle and all that jazz, honor God. Honor God with the man that you choose. Let the man choose you. Don't pursue him. Honor God that way. Because I promise you, it will be more fruitful in the end. It'll be more fruitful in the end. Pray about it. Follow after it. Seek his will. Come back to this passage in the Bible of Nabal and understand this guy did not do it right, and we don't want to do it the way he did. It's pretty simple. And it's actually pretty funny. Because guess what? The next point that I have for you guys is Nabal didn't listen to his wife. Go ahead, chuckle. It's okay. It's all right. You can chuckle. It's not a bad thing to smile and have a good time, all right? Nabal didn't listen to his wife. If you look at the word macho in the dictionary, you will see Nabal's picture standing right next to it. Nabal's picture should be right there because his wife Abigail was described in verse number 3 as intelligent. She was praised in verse 33 because of her discernment. But Nabal didn't benefit from his wife's wisdom because he ignored her. One of the very first pieces of equipment. One of the very first pieces of advice that my father-in-law gave to me when I married his daughter was listen to her. Because although she's a woman, she's a female, she's your helpmeet, she's there and can see things from a different perspective than us men will ever see. And again, 2025 is right around the corner. We need to see things from a different perspective. I'm serious, gentlemen. Listen to your wives. And ladies, listen to your husbands. It goes hand in hand. Nabal didn't benefit from listening to his wife because he ignored her. She was a deeply spirited woman. She stopped David from making the foolish mistake of attacking Nabal, and David listened to Abigail. And in fact, after Nabal passed away, David married Abigail. He found her so smart and so worthy and so, such an awesome individual. He's like, hey, come be my wife. I'll take care of you. And obviously she said okay, so it worked out fine for her. David listened to Abigail, but Nabal arrogantly refused. The lesson I want to point out to you guys this morning is smart men marry women who love God, and they treasure their wives' advice. Now, I understand we have a lot of headstrong individuals in this world. We have a lot of headstrong people probably listening online. We have a problem with headstrong individuals sitting in this congregation this morning. I'm one of them. So I'll tell you right now, guilty as charged. However, I will say this. The Bible does clearly put the man above the woman. The decision-making process still goes 50-50. If it breaks down, if it's a 50-50 tie in the Senate, the vice president makes the call. That means that the man makes the call. If it's the wrong call, the lady's not going to let you forget it. But if it's the right call, the man's not going to let you forget it. The point is, listen to your lady's advice. Listen to her advice, because although you don't see it, and although you may not think about it, it's worth listening to. It's worth listening to. Smart men marry women who love God and they treasure their wives' advice. I have an opportunity to listen to my wife counsel me on how to attend to my children's. 3 girls, 1 boy, 3 weddings, 1 heart attack. Looking forward to that. However, she tells me and teaches me and points me in the direction of understanding when I don't understand things. I've got 2 dads in my life. Both of them were military. That doesn't necessarily make me a military brat, but I grew up on pretty strict pretenses in life. I have expectations. My 7-year-old doesn't exactly follow up to those expectations. And my wife is kind enough to remind me of that. Sometimes she's not so kind. But you know what? I still take the advice and I still follow through with it. Men, I'm telling you guys, next year's coming. It's an opportunity for us to step up. It's an opportunity for us to learn from our mistakes. It's an opportunity for us to be better as men. And if we want to start doing that, if it's our goal to do that, if it's our resolution for 2025, listen to your wives. Listen to your wives. Next thing I've got on this list for this morning. Hold on 1 second. We've been going through a bout of sickness in our household. I've got a frog in my throat. Once heard a nice lady told me that. She lived at the nursing home I worked at when I was a kid. The next thing I want to point to you guys out this morning is this. Nabal never broke free from his sinful natures. Nabal never broke free from his sinful nature. Now, I know individuals in here. I don't know you personally, and I don't know what you're thinking. I'm going to make the assumption, and of course, assumption can get me in trouble. But there's probably individuals in here that are going, I have no sinful tendencies. Well, that's pride. That's a sinful tendency. Abigail painted a pitiful picture of her husband when she begged David not to attack Nabal. She said in verse 25, and you can read that yourself, Nabal never rose above the depravity of his past. He never grew spiritually, and he refused to change. I will say this, men, ladies as well. If you have a past, so what? It's in your past. You guys ever remember the movie Mufasa, the animated version, the real good one before it was all messed up with the live action stuff? What was it Timon and Pumbaa used to say? You got to put your past behind you. You got to put your behind in your past. Same concept. We do not have a past when it comes to our relationship with God. We do not have a past when it comes to our growing closer to our Creator. It doesn't exist. He doesn't see it. We are only reminded of it when we drudge it up ourselves, or when the devil decides to be like, hey, you're not as perfect as you think you are, which is going to happen because that's the devil's goal, is to throw us off track. But I'm here to explain to you, and I'm here to show you, I'm here to give you the example that Nabal never broke free of his sinful nature, which makes him one of the stupidest men in the Bible. I don't want to be a stupid person. I don't want to fall on the same track as being an unintelligent individual, that I can't learn from my mistakes. I can't look back, see my past, and be like, hey, I've seen this before, deja vu. I don't want any part of it. Nabal never could do that. He never grew spiritually because he didn't pursue it. He didn't want to change because he was happy where he was. Men in this congregation and those listening online, we've got to want to change. We've got to want to do better. We've got to want to learn from those lessons. You got to want to learn from the mistakes you've made, and you've got to want to not fall back into it, because I'll promise you, and I've been there, I've done that, and I've suffered, and so has my family. You fall back into the same routines, nothing different will come from it. It's the definition of insanity. Right? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. The point I want to get to then is smart individuals may not come from the best backgrounds, but when they trust God and they have Jesus in their lives, Jesus sets them free from every sinful tendency. And if that's not truer than true, I don't know what is. You put Christ first, you put God first, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your families, whether it's your kids, whether it's the examples that you send to other people, and I promise you, your sinful tendencies and your sinful natures will decrease a whole lot more than they would have if you just follow the same old. It's crazy to think about, but it's true. It's very true. Next thing I want to point out to you guys is this. Nabal let his addictions control him. After Abigail successfully prevented David from slaughtering Nabal's men, she went to tell her husband and found him so drunk that she had to wait until morning to talk to him about it. Alcohol was his drug of choice. What's your drug of choice this morning? Is it football? Is it sports? Is it, I don't know, is it drugs? Is it alcohol? Is it porn? Is it sex? Is it sex outside of marriage? Is it the dirty talking stuff through the phones? What's your drug of choice that separates you from your wife? That separates you from your relationship with Christ? Men, it starts with us. It has to. We shouldn't expect the ladies to be the leaders of your home. We are. That's the biblical right of it all. Nabal let his addiction control his life. Smart guys don't allow unhealthy behavior to control them. They seek help and they confess their sins. We've heard Pastor Tom use it a million times. I'm going to borrow the same verse because I think I've preached on it once or twice. 1 John 1:9 says, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive them. If you have sins in your life, men, if you have sins in your life, ladies, just confess them. Just bring them forth. I know it's so much easier, so much harder than it is. It's so much easier said than it is to be done. But I promise you, it takes courage. It takes determination. And guess what? When you do those things, you'll prove to yourself that you're willing to change. And we just popped that. We just talked about that in our last point. If you're willing to change, then you're willing to let go of it all. You ask forgiveness for those sins and you confess for those sins, and guess what else? Who's going to learn from those things? Your kids, your wife, your family, your friends, your coworkers. You're going to be the man that you're supposed to be instead of the man that you think you are. You guys ever seen those Facebook pictures where it's like, what I think I look like pumping iron at the gym, what I really look like pumping out of the gym? Right? Same concept applies. How God sees you as a man versus how we see ourselves as a man. I don't want to see that picture. I don't want to see that at all. Next thing I want to talk about this morning real quickly is he had a hard heart. Nabal had a hard heart. When Abigail finally told Nabal that she had successfully intervened in David's life and how David was destined for the throne of Israel, Nabal's heart died within him so that he became, in verse 37, a stone. He hardened his heart. How many men in this congregation this morning can say they have a hard heart when it comes to certain things? How many men in this congregation, or even out listening online, or even ladies, how many ladies in the congregation right now have a hard heart towards things? Maybe it's a family altercation. Maybe it's bitterness. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's a sign of unforgiveness. There are lots of things that we can have a hard heart concerning. Don't be like Nabal, whatever his name is. I've said it wrong probably 17 times so far. Don't be like this guy. Don't follow that example. Don't harden your heart. Don't harden your heart. Nabal's heart died within him so that it became a stone. His physical condition mirrored his spiritual deadness, and his stubborn refusal to submit to God's authority ended up taking him to an early grave. If you get to that end of that chapter, that verse, if you get to the end of the story, God took him early. That's the reason why David married Abigail, because he recognized a good lady when he saw one. The lesson number 5 that I want to get to this morning is simply this. Smart guys maintain a close, intimate relationship, fellowship with Jesus, so their hearts stay moldable. Moldable. Like Play-Doh. Clay. Which, by the way, Play-Doh tastes terrible unless it's homemade. Just want to throw that out there to you guys. Look, I'm trying to make you smile a little bit. You guys are all stone-faced. It's not a bad thing. Anyway, harden your hearts, guys. There's many reasons. There's many excuses. There's many oh buts, or oh this person, or oh that person. There's many things we can say as the reasons why we harden our hearts. But in this instance, Nabal was deemed one of the stupidest individuals because he did so. Don't harden your heart, ladies and gentlemen. Don't harden your heart to what God calls you to. Don't harden your heart to the opportunity to forgive individuals or to be forgiven for things that you may or may not have done. Don't harden your heart when it comes to witnessing. Don't harden your heart when it comes to being involved with whether it's church, whether it's community, whether it's friends, whether it's anything that you have an opportunity to present the gospel to do so. Don't harden your heart when it comes to it. One of the great things I learned or watched when we were living in Kentucky. I'm not a Kentucky fan. Not a Kentucky fan. I used to live there. Helped start a church there. Awesome things happened at that place. But one of the coolest things I ever saw happen was, despite, national law or whatever you want to call it, the football teams still gathered at the 50-yard line before every game, and they prayed. And it was awesome. Because they didn't care if the coach got fired. They didn't care if the game got canceled. They were going to stinking pray. And prayed they did. They didn't harden their heart to the opportunity. Coaches, men, women, husbands, wives, don't harden your heart to the opportunity to just pray. Just pray. For whatever it is. If it's small, pray about it. If it's big, pray about it. If it's middle-sized, pray about it. Don't harden your heart to it. Sorry if I'm boring you guys. I'm enjoying myself. One of the tragedies, and I say tragedy, because that's exactly what it is. It's a tragedy of our generation, is to treat so many Christian men, sitting in the back rows of churches, struggling to become true disciples. Some of them have been haunted by certain behaviors. Some of them have been hurt before. Some of them have, I don't like church because they did this to somebody. Okay, how did it affect you? What's that got to do with the price of beans over in China? Nothing. I tell my kids all the time when they come whining to me, are you dying? Are you bleeding? Are you okay? You're good. Carry on. Men, it's time for us to get up out of the back row of church. I'm not necessarily saying stand in the front, okay? Don't get me wrong. Get up off the back rows of the churches. Get up off the back row of your life when it comes to your family, your friends, your kids, your wives. And just be what you're supposed to be. And there's no better time to start that than right now, coming into the brand new year. We have the opportunity as Bethel Baptist Church, as the men of Bethel Baptist, as the ladies of Bethel Baptist, as the generation who's downstairs right now going through children's church, to affect the next generation of individuals who will be downstairs going through children's church, the next generation of lady basketball players, the next generation of football players. We have that opportunity as men and women to make an impact in that. If we don't follow Nabal, whatever. What would this world come to? What would this world look like? What would this country look like? What would this county look like? If the huge numbers of men renounced their selfishness, renounced their repeated foolishness, and asked God to break their hard hearts. Ladies, that involves you too. Okay? Just saying. It should be our prayer. It should be our mission. It should be our goal. It should be our resolution that God will spark an internal movement within ourselves first. And then maybe it will turn county. And then maybe it will turn city. And then maybe it'll turn national. We don't know. But we don't know because we don't know. G.I. Joe once said, knowing is half the battle. And I don't know about you all, but I want to know what God's got in store for us. And I want to see it in my family and in this church and in my kids and in y'all's kids and the youth group kids. I want to see the impact that we can have. And it starts with the men and ladies too. Okay? That's where it starts. It should be our prayer that God will spark a movement that will break addiction. It'll stop domestic violence. It will allow reconciliation between broken families, and it will turn the stubborn Nabals into humble Davids. Let that be your prayer this morning. Let that be your goal for next year, which is in 3 days. You all consider this, all right? Don't be like Nadal. Stay true to yourselves. Follow Christ. Be the man you're supposed to be. Be the woman you're supposed to be.